It almost ended last night. And you didn't even know it. While you were asleep, or maybe just trying to keep yourself from breaking down again, someone you love more than words can express, someone you trusted to hold your heart gently, fell to their knees, and shattered. Not because they stopped loving you, but because they were told to. They weren't just crying. They were being torn in two, by voices they should have been able to trust. Family. Those who should have protected your name, those who should have supported your connection, became the mouthpiece of doubt, of fear, of control. And what they said? It pierced deeper than any weapon. You don't need them. You're better off without them. They are your weakness. A burden. A mistake. Words meant to sound like wisdom, but designed in hell. Words spoken by lips pretending to love, but dripping with manipulation. And the one who loves you, they almost believed it. For a split second, long enough to break. Long enough to wonder if walking away from you was the only way to silence the storm around them. They were not just battling emotions. They were standing in the middle of a spiritual war. And heaven was watching. The angel of the Lord stood in the room. Silent. Still. Sorrowful. Because the battle was not just about two people in love. It was about destiny. Legacy. Covenant. And for a moment, the darkness tried to win. But it didn't. Because even in the chaos, even when their heart trembled and the tears poured, something deeper held on. A thread heaven wove between your soul and theirs. A sacred connection man cannot break. A love not written by emotion, but etched in divine purpose. And that's why you felt so off lately. The sudden distance. The confusion. The silence where warmth used to live. You weren't imagining it. You were feeling the tension of a battle you couldn't see. Your spirit knew before your mind understood. And now heaven is stepping in. The angel says, "My precious one, sit down. What I'm about to reveal will break your heart, before it sets it free." You may have asked yourself, why did they pull away? What changed? Was it something I said? Something I did know. You didn't fail them. You didn't fall short. You didn't stop loving them. But someone else did stop believing in you, and they made sure to speak that doubt out loud. Behind closed doors, in hushed conversations masked as concern, a storm was brewing. It didn't start with a scream. It started with a whisper. A woman, someone close to them, someone who wore the disguise of protector, counselor, even family, sat them down and said the most dangerous thing a hurting soul could hear: they're the reason you're not moving forward. They are holding you back. You need to think about your future, not your feelings. You deserve better. And in that moment, your name was not defended. It was dissected. Piece by piece. By someone who never took the time to know the real you, but felt entitled to rewrite your story anyway. And the person you love? They were tired. They were vulnerable. They were desperate for peace. And for a split second, they wondered if the lies might actually be true. They didn't argue. They didn't push back. They just sat there, eyes wide, lips sealed, heart cracking. Trying to process whether walking away from you would finally silence the noise around them. That's when they knelt. That's when the ground received their tears. That's when heaven held its breath. Because this wasn't just heartbreak. This was warfare. The enemy wasn't just targeting their heart. He was aiming for yours. He wanted to shatter your purpose by separating you from the one who was supposed to walk beside you. Angel says, I was there. I stood beside them while they knelt in agony. I heard their heartbeat asking, am I wrong for loving someone everyone else wants me to forget? You weren't there to hold them. You weren't there to speak truth. You weren't even given the chance to defend yourself. But heaven was there. And I saw it all. I saw how they collapsed in silence after pretending to be strong all day. I saw how their hands trembled as they reached for their phone, then stopped themselves. I saw them rereading your messages, then locking the screen without replying. I saw the moment they considered deleting your name, and couldn't. Not because they didn't love you, but because they were drowning in pressure. Because they were made to feel that choosing you meant betraying their own blood. And yet, their soul still clung to yours. Yes, they pulled away. Yes, they've gone quiet. Yes, you feel like a ghost in a story you were once the center of. But no. They did not stop loving you. They are scared. Scared that what they feel might ruin what they've always been told is right. Scared that loving you might cost them the approval of those who raised them. Scared that standing with you might mean standing alone. And now you're left with silence. With no closure. No answers. Just confusion that gnaws at you from the inside. But heaven says, it's not over. The silence is not rejection. It is the pressure before the breakthrough. I allowed them to be shaken, not to destroy the bond, but to expose the infection surrounding it. There were spirits speaking through people, not just opinions, but agendas. Spirits of division, control, manipulation, fear. They wrapped themselves in the voices of relatives, mentors, friends. Voices that sound like wisdom, but speak from pain, not prophecy. And now those voices still echo in your loved one's mind. They lie awake at night, their heart torn in two. One hand holding memories of you, the other holding guilt that doesn't belong to them. But listen to me, I am not the God of confusion. I do not whisper shame. I do not instruct people to abandon what I have joined. What happened was not your fault. You were loving with your whole heart. You were consistent. You were honest. You gave everything you could. And still, you were seen as disposable by people who never truly saw your worth. But I, the Lord your God, I saw. I stood over your bed when you cried in silence. I watched your hands shake as you typed and deleted the same message 100 times. I heard your unspoken question, what did I do wrong? And here is your answer, nothing. You were simply the light they couldn't comprehend. You were the love that challenged their fear. You were the truth that threatened their illusion. And that's why they attacked. Not because you failed, but because you revealed what they were never willing to heal. But now I am moving. You are not crazy. You are not forgotten. And you are not losing them, not forever. The one who cried last night. They are about to dream. They are about to see. They are about to awaken. Because when I plant a connection, no lie can uproot it. Not permanently. They thought it would pass. They tried to forget. Tried to bury the feelings, the memories, the moments, the connection. They went quiet. They shut you out. They convinced themselves it was for the best. But the truth has a strange way of rising, especially when it's wrapped in divine timing. And now, God has begun to whisper into their sleep. It started small. A dream. A flicker. A scene. At first, they ignored it. Brushed it off as nothing. But then it came again, and again. They wake up sweating, heart pounding. Your face. Your voice. Your name echoing in places they thought they had sealed shut. And no matter how hard they try, they cannot unsee what heaven is showing them. Because this isn't imagination. It's intervention. Heaven is not just watching anymore. Heaven is invading. God has chosen their dreams as the canvas to repaint what was distorted by others. The same voice that told them you were a burden now sounds hollow. The same person who planted doubts now appears in their dreams, but shadowed, veiled, distant, while you shine like clarity. They feel it now. The divide. The tension between what they were told and what they feel. God is not whispering anymore. He is roaring inside their soul, what I joined, let no man separate. What I authored, no lie can erase. What I called good, they tried to call unworthy, but I never changed my mind. They don't know how to tell you this. They don't even know how to face you yet. They fear your silence. They fear your eyes looking back at them and asking, why didn't you fight for me? But God is stirring them to return. Not just to reconnect, but to repair. To restore. To rebuild. Because they're realizing now, they didn't just walk away from a person. They walked away from purpose. And the weight of that decision is crushing them. Not because you've begged. Not because you've chased. But because your absence has become louder than anyone's voice. You didn't argue. You didn't retaliate. You didn't curse. You did something far more powerful, you surrendered. You gave the battle to God. You stepped back with grace. You cried, yes, but in secret. You prayed instead of plotting revenge. And heaven saw it. Now God is honoring it. Now the dreams are shifting from confusion to conviction. The angel who once stood silently beside them as they cried is now speaking into their sleep. Remember their eyes. Remember how they loved you when no one else did. Remember their loyalty when others only showed up for comfort. You are forgetting the one person who never walked away from you, until you pushed them to. And it hurts. Oh, it hurts them deeply. But it is the kind of hurt that leads to healing. The kind that wakes you up and shows you just how far you've fallen, and how far you must go to make it right. They are beginning to remember. The softness in your voice. The way your presence calmed storms in their soul. The way you loved them with a love that didn't ask for performance. Didn't demand perfection. Just presence. And now, they want it back. But they're afraid. Afraid they've waited too long. Afraid their silence already broke something in you they can't repair. But listen to me now, nothing God joins can be broken beyond repair when both hearts are willing to surrender. And that is what God is working on now. Not just awakening, but softening. Not just conviction, but courage. He is preparing them to return. Not as someone who was pressured, but as someone who chooses. Because what's coming next is not just apology. It is alignment. Heaven is orchestrating a moment where truth will confront the lies. And your name, the one they were told to forget, will be the very name that brings their healing. Because God never erased you. And now, neither can they. It's never just about feelings. It's never just about connection. When God forges something in the spirit, there will always come a moment when it's tested in the flesh. And that moment is here. Because now, the person who knelt down and cried for you, the one who almost believed the lies, the one who pushed you away while still aching for your presence, they've seen the dream. They've heard heaven's whisper. But they still have to choose. And that choice will cost them something. You see, truth is not always followed by freedom. Sometimes, it's followed by fire. And now, the heat is rising. The people who once pressured them to let you go, they haven't stopped. They've just changed their tactics. They're more subtle now. More manipulative. Using guilt instead of rage. Using silence instead of force. Saying things like, you do what you want, but remember what they did. Don't forget who's always been here for you. Do you really think going back is worth the drama? And it hurts. Because they're torn between two worlds, one born of blood. One born of spirit. And even now, with the dreams growing louder, they wonder. What if it's too late? What if I return, and they don't want me anymore? What if I'm rejected again, this time for good? But what they don't know is this, while they've been struggling with fear, you've been wrestling with silence. You've been learning how to love from a distance. How to grieve something that never had a proper ending. How to let go without becoming bitter. And most of all, you've been growing. You've cried. You've questioned. You've screamed in the middle of the night into your pillow where no one could hear you. But you didn't stop believing. You didn't become like them. And that's why God is elevating you. Yes, while they've been tormented by guilt and pressure, God has been working behind the scenes to build a table for you. A table in the presence of those who doubted you. A table of clarity. Of peace. Of preparation. Because whether they return or not, God is making sure you rise. The enemy thought that by taking them from your side, he would break your momentum. That without them, your purpose would stall. But he was wrong. Because instead of sinking, you surrendered. Instead of shutting down, you grew deeper roots. Instead of chasing people, you chased God. And that has changed everything. Now heaven is saying, child, don't worry about who stayed and who left. Don't tie your worth to who returns. What I'm doing in you now is not based on their apology. It's based on your obedience. But still, God is merciful. And He hasn't given up on them either. The test they're facing now. It's not just about you. It's about whether they can finally choose truth, even when it means standing alone. It's about whether they're strong enough to say, I was wrong. I listened to the wrong voices. And I want to come home. And if they do, heaven will celebrate. The angels who once wept in silence will erupt in praise. Because love won. But if they don't, if they choose comfort over conviction, silence over restoration, then heaven will still honor your pain. God will still lift you higher. And the story will still be rewritten, just without them. Because this isn't a love story based on need. It's a divine journey based on destiny. And destiny does not pause for the indecisive. You will keep walking. You will keep rising. And the peace you feel now, it's not from them. It's from God. So hold still. Be ready. Not just to receive them back, but to receive everything God prepared while they were gone. This is where everything shifts. Not because they finally came back. Not because they apologized. But because you chose to stay faithful in the waiting. Heaven doesn't move based on emotion. Heaven moves based on alignment. And child of God, you have remained aligned. You didn't curse them. You didn't chase them. You didn't manipulate the outcome. You stood still. You wept in private. You whispered prayers no one else ever heard. And now, God moves. Whether they come back or not, your reward was never tied to their return. It was tied to your obedience. Yes, God saw them cry. Yes, He heard the torment in their heart. Yes, He knows they still love you. But this season is not about unfinished apologies. It's about unshakable identity. You are not defined by who left. You are not marked by who stayed silent. You are being marked by favor. And now, the door opens. Not just a metaphorical door. A literal shift in your life. Relationships. Resources. Revelation. Because when someone walks away from God's ordained plan, He doesn't panic, He prepares a replacement. If they return with truth, with surrender, with humility, God will receive them. You will have the grace to rebuild. It will be beautiful. Restorative. Redemptive. But if they don't, if fear wins, if ego reigns, if they choose silence over surrender, then heaven will not stall your destiny to wait for theirs. Because while you were grieving the separation, God was crafting a new alignment. Someone who doesn't need to be convinced of your value. Someone who doesn't listen to voices that weren't sent by God. Someone who prays for you before they text you. Someone who doesn't see your past as baggage, but as a testimony. And whether that's the person you once knew, or someone new entirely, God will make sure you are loved in full. Not in fragments. Because you paid the price. You carried the weight. You didn't run to counterfeit comfort. You stood in truth when truth cost everything. Heaven says, I am not just healing your heart, I am honoring it. The season of survival is ending. The season of overflow is beginning. And the place of your greatest rejection is about to become the place of your greatest reward. You won't have to force it. You won't have to beg for it. It will come wrapped in peace, dripping in confirmation, and sealed with divine clarity. No confusion. No hesitation. No contradiction. Just truth. Just alignment. Just God. Because this was never about romance. That moment this when was the person who left, the one who allowed you are walking out of the fire louder than truth, begins and you are not coming out empty. It's not guilt. It's not just regret. It's revelation. They start to realize, you weren't the problem. You weren't the cause of their pressure. You were the anchor during their storm, but they cut the line because someone told them anchors make you sink. And now they're adrift. But you're no longer waiting at the shore. While they were trying to suppress the truth, God was promoting you in secret. He whispered your name into the ears of the right people. He breathed favor into rooms you never walked into. He placed opportunities at your feet not because you begged, but because you endured. Now, the person who once questioned your worth is looking at your life with eyes wide open. They scroll through your posts. They pause on your pictures. They read your words and feel your strength. And realize they are no longer your center. And it stings. Because they thought you'd always be there. They thought your heart would remain open, your door unlocked, your soul stuck in a cycle of hoping. But they underestimated what God would do with a broken heart fully surrendered. They didn't know that while they were figuring out what they wanted, heaven was already establishing what you needed. So now they stand at a distance. Torn. One part of them wants to return. To call, to apologize, to explain. The other part fears. What if I'm too late? What if they've moved on? What if they don't see me the same anymore? And truthfully you don't. Not because you hate them. Not because you're bitter. But because pain has a way of maturing people faster than time ever could. You're wiser now. Stronger. Softer, too, but not foolish. You can love them from a healed place, but you no longer need them to feel whole. Angel says, your heart has become a garden. Not a graveyard. And only those who come to plant life may enter. So if they return, they will find someone refined. Someone who's not afraid to say, I loved you, but I love myself enough to not repeat the cycle. And if they return with humility, with truth, with accountability, you may let them close again. But only if God says yes. Only if your spirit says peace. Only if the pain no longer trembles at the sound of their voice. Because now, your life is no longer waiting on people to choose you. You've already been chosen. By heaven. And that comes with a weight of glory they could never have carried when they were unsure. So now they must decide, will they rise? Will they match the level of spiritual maturity you've embraced? Will they come not as a broken echo of the past, but as a builder of the future? Because this time, it's not about restoring the connection. It's about protecting your purpose. You're no longer accessible through guilt. You're no longer reachable through memories. Only truth will reach you now. Only alignment. Only obedience. Now comes the fire. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that reveals. Because it's not enough to feel regret. It's not enough to miss you. It's not enough to finally realize what they lost. Now, they must walk through the fire. Yes, the person who once knelt down and cried for you, the one who allowed voices to pull them away, is feeling the full weight of what they gave up. But now God is asking them, are you willing to fight for what I gave you? Are you ready to walk through everything you avoided? Will you face the people who lied and still choose truth, or will you stay silent and watch them rise without you? Because here's what they see now, you didn't just survive, you transformed. You didn't just wait. You worshipped. You didn't just heal, you glowed. And the difference between the version of you they left and the one you are now, it is divine. You've become unreachable to the old version of them. They can't just knock on your door with half-truths and old energy. They must bring wholeness. Accountability. Surrender. Because your heart is no longer on clearance. It's covered. Covered by grace. Guarded by wisdom. Surrounded by angels. You still have love, yes. But it now comes with boundaries. So what does the fire look like for them? It looks like confessing what they hid. Owning what they allowed. Facing the ones who turned them against you and saying, I was wrong. And I choose them anyway. It looks like stepping out of comfort and into calling. It looks like rebuilding what they let burn, brick by brick, tear by tear, prayer by prayer. Not for sympathy. Not for show. But because they finally see your value in full. And if they do it, if they rise to meet the standard God set, if they walk through the fire and come out refined, they will find something waiting for them, a healed version of you who no longer needs them, but still chooses to love them, because God never stopped writing your story. But if they don't, if they choose silence again, if they retreat into pride or fear or comfort, then God will do what He always does for the faithful, He will replace what they forfeited. He will bring someone who never needed to be convinced. Someone who sees you and says, you are worth the fire. You are worth the wait. You are worth the fight. And your soul will finally understand, the delay wasn't punishment. It was protection. It gave heaven time to remove the counterfeit and prepare the covenant. Because love without sacrifice isn't love. It's convenience. And you were never called to be convenient. You were called to be chosen.